Hi guys. This is another fountain pen and inks video, but it's a different one, different type of one. I'm not specifically necessarily recommending anything, although the product that I'm going to be talking about today is going to be primarily one brand. So, but not by way of recommending it, just about talking about what I want to talk about today is value versus cost in fountain pens and inks. I recorded a whole video prior to this and then scrapped it because it was just 30 minutes of rambling, and it took me to the end of the video to realize what my topic was. But it's about value versus the return on your investment in fountain pens. I have a whack of fountain pens, more than any human probably should have, and a lot of inks. I have about 40 bottles of ink, give or take a little bit, 19 of which are Noodlers, if that tells you anything. But I have fountain pens that run the gamut from Platinum Preppies, which are fantastic little pens, at $4, to my most expensive pen. I have a Vanishing Point that had I got a modified nib on, and then I have a Sailor that I got a John Mottishaw modified nib on that I like, and I like the Vanishing Point, and I love my Laney 2K. I have one of those, and that's a really good pen, a really solid pen. But not only have I not had money to just throw at fountain pens on things like Deltas and Visconti, Homo sapiens, and all these pens that are, or vintage pens that are extremely spendy. To me, fountain pens are something that I enjoy having sort of a middle road where I can have a whack of them and use a whack of different inks versus having 3 or 4 really expensive pens, say a Nikaya or something like that, and only having 1 or 2 or something. I would never drop over $200 on a pen. I mean, that's my, and that is for a modified nib. That's my, even if I had money, even if I won the lottery tomorrow, that is just my threshold. That's my price threshold. But I have to say that I have enjoyed the pens. I shouldn't say it, let me phrase it differently. I really like the Laney 2000. It's a very nice pen, very solid pen. It's the only pen that I've been able to successfully run Noodler's L. Lawrence in on a consistent basis where it hasn't had flow issues. That pen sucks it up, shoots it out, not a problem. It's a piston fill, which is my favorite filling mechanism as well, so I'm sure that helps. The Vanishing Points are okay. I have a white one and then the blue carbon fiber, whatever that's called, and I like it. It's got a Pendleton brown modified nib, which is fantastic, but I don't like the pen itself. I didn't get as much return on my investment as I had hoped that I would. I enjoy it. It's a good pen. The nib is fantastic. The pen itself is just not my favorite. And then the converter inside of them converters are so small that I found in the Southwest. One of the reasons that I like Pistonville so much is that in a converter, pens with converters, I lose a lot of ink to evaporation because it's so dry here. And those pens have very small converters anyway. So, value versus what you get, the return on your investment, that ratio between what you spend and how much you enjoy pens and inks. I have recently been reevaluating how I use fountain pens, what inks I used in them, how I use them, where I use them, for instance, on what paper. Primarily I use them for journaling. Not journaling. I keep a notebook that I write in every day, and I have different things in it. So it's sort of a, not commonplace book exactly, but lists. It has journaling entries, it has lists, it has comparisons, it has drawings, it has all kinds of things in it. And that's primarily where I use fountain pens, because I can control a notebook and I can order fountain pen friendly paper. My planner, I recently got a Dodo pad, a CAD pad, and I can use fountain pens in it because it has nicer paper. Filofax obviously had junk paper and you just weren't using a fountain pen in it. So I've been evaluating where I use fountain pens, what color of pens I like to use, why I was not using many of my fountain pens. I was using 1 or 2. I had fountain pens that had sat in the case for months I hadn't touched, and I just decided that this was ridiculous, that I was just wasting perfectly good pens and ink. And I love fountain pens. I love the fact that you can control the pen, you can control the nib, you can control the ink. and you can get the desired result you want if you tinker with it enough. And I don't mean tinker with the pens, I just mean finding the pen and ink combination that works for you. So, on the road to finding what has worked, I've bought a lot of pens. I started out with very cheap pens to see if the hobby was something that I really enjoyed. I have a whack of Platinum Preppies that I don't use much anymore. I use these two. These are two of them. These came with the larger bottles of Noodler's ink, the big eyedropper ones. And so these I'm using primarily like for drawing, and I have these in my pen bags. There's X Feather and the Manjiro Nakahama Whaleman Sepia. I ended up with a lot of Lamy Safaris. I have a couple of All-Stars and a Vista. And I know I say Lamy funny, let's just move past it. But I ended up with a lot of these. And these are good solid pens. I think in my fountain pens for newbies, I recommended these to start with. And they're a good value for the money. I don't like the converters at all. I don't like that the pen is a pain to clean. These converters are very difficult to get clean. They get ink back behind the piston in them. They're small. They don't hold much ink. I've never been a fan of this grip, but I've ended up with as many as I have because it's a good solid pen for the investment. So the money that I spend on them is worth the performance to me, as opposed to something that is perhaps more expensive but doesn't give me as many as I would like or the performance that I would like. TWSBI I moved up to from the Safari. I think it's a step up. I think it's a pretty big step up, frankly. And I have this one. It's a 580. I have a 540 too. It's in pieces in the bathroom being washed, but this is the 580, and I really like these pens. I really do. I hate that they don't post. That's just, I don't like that, but they hold a whack of ink, which I like. I don't lose much to evaporation, so they must be sealed fairly well. The nibs are just lovely. This is a broad nib, which is beautiful. I have Noodler's Navajo Turquoise in it, and a broad nib is, or Iblide. This is Noodler's Navy, even better. It's just beautiful. These are a great value, and I like this pen far more than I like the Sailor with the John Shaw modified nib. I like it better than the Pilot Vanishing Point for a variety of reasons. And you know, they're pretty darn sturdy. I keep this in a pen bag, and it, you know, sort of bumps against other. I'll show you what I have. It's one of these from Jet Pens. So you have, this is the TWSBI right here, and this is the Vista, an All-Star, and a Schaefer Prelude. Some more Lamys, and this is like a little pin bed where I have a whole bunch of stuff lying in there. But for value's sake, for pure value's sake and performance, I have found a pen, actually a couple pens in retrospect, although I didn't feel this way in the beginning, but I found a pen that just beats them all except for the TWSBI. Really, honestly, if I could scrap every pen I have except for these two, I would be really happy with my pens. TWSBI, I really like the TWSBIs. Pardon me, but these are the Noodler's Conrads. Piston fill, very easy to fill, very easy pen to take apart, do maintenance on. It's got a blind cap on the back, and then you have the part that is the piston mechanism. So these are fully postable, unlike the TWSBIs. So it's a twist cap, fully postable. It's a nice size pen, which is nice for people who either have arthritic hands or who have carpal tunnel or something. There's a little more there to grip. You're not trying to grip so hard because you have a little more pen to hang on to. They come in great colors. They're $20, folks. And they come with the Noodler's Flex nib. Now, I like the Flex nib fine. I'm not a huge Flex nib fan, and I don't use the Flex to its advantage. I prefer calligraphy nibs like a 1.1 stub if I'm going to use any kind of different type of nib. But that's not to say that these nibs aren't fine. Now, I did recently pick up a couple of the Goulet nibs that they're doing under their own branding in a fine and a medium, and they're really nice too, and they're just regular round nibs. I do have to say, though, that they are wide nibs. So I picked up the Fine and I started writing, and I thought, oh, I've made a mistake. I've put this on the wrong pen. This is the medium nib. It wasn't. It was the Fine. The medium was really large, but they're lovely. Pardon me. I'm sorry. They're really lovely nibs. That is the that has some kind of noodlers in it. I don't remember. It's one of the. I think that's Borealis Black. And so I've got some Dim Creep on there, and that's what you're seeing. But even with, this is the Narwhal one that I got today. This is the regular Noodlers nib, and this is one of the V-Mail series inks. This is let me put these other pens down. This is Burma Road Brown, which I really like. It reminds me a lot of El Lawrence, and you can see it looks like an oil slick kind of on the nib. I don't mind nib creep. It's not an issue for me. I think it's just one of the neat things about Noodlers that I like. But, you know, I like Nathan Tardif. I like his philosophy of business. I like his philosophy of value for your investment, a value in pens and inks that's going to last you. If you and the idea that you're fully encouraged to tinker with his pens, with Noodler's pens, and change them and change nibs and work on the feeds and do what you need to do to make this pen work the way you want it to work. And I like that because it's rare, particularly in America today. And I like that, you know. I did pick up another one of the Nib Creepers. This is a gray. This was the original Flex pen that he came out with, the Nib Creeper. What you see there is some Noodler's Borealis Black. Obviously, I've been playing with pins today. And this isn't a gray. I've got Lexington gray in it, which is fantastically gorgeous in this. I had a couple of the Nib Creepers, and I was not going to get any more Noodler's pins because I had kind of some problems with them, and I wasn't fond of the nibs, but I took a chance on the Conrads, and I'm so glad I did because I think it's a better pen than this one, although this one I got is much better than the original two I got. So either I got one out of the box that was just great, or the quality control has come up a lot on the Nib Creepers. These are a much smaller pen altogether and a much smaller nib. Oh, I'm sorry. So this is the Conrad. This is the Nib Creeper. So you can see the difference in size fairly well, even on my junky webcam. But the value still can't be beat. And on the Nib Creeper, which you can also take apart and service, the nib and the feed on all these pens from Noodlers are friction fit. They pop right out. You can change the wetness of your pen if you need to. You can change the flow to your pen, which obviously is what's changing the wetness. I get that. You change the flow to your pen. You can change the way the tines flex if you're using the flex pens, because you have that freedom to move the nib, to tinker with the nib a little bit. When I first got the Conrads, when I got the black ones, I have 3 different types of black, and I don't know the names of these two. I think this one is called Pequod Smoke. You can't tell, it's a very smoky pen. It's you can see through it. It's almost like a demonstrator, but it's very smoky color. And then there's a sort of a medium black, I don't remember what it's called, and then a very dark, very black, very opaque. When I first got these, obviously they all come with the Noodler's Flex nib. One of the nibs was a little scratchier than the others. 2 were smoother than the third, but that's an easy fix with a nail buffer or, you know, the micro mesh or what have you. So that was an easy fix, and I have not had an ounce of issues with these pens. They don't leak. They take some banging around. I don't feel like if I take them out. I think one of the things that I didn't like with the more expensive pens, say the Vanishing Point, the Lamy 2000, I don't take them anywhere because I'm afraid I'm going to lose them or drop them or something horrible is going to happen to them, and I don't want to take them out of the house. You know, a $20 pen, well, I don't want to just throw away $20. If I lose it or something happens to it, well, bummer, there's $20. But it's not like losing a $200 pen. To me, that's a very big difference. So they're kind of knockabout. I don't worry about them, and that's really what you want a tool to do, right? When you get down to it, a pen is a tool. And the importance to me is the writing, not necessarily just the pen. Excuse me. And so to me, function far outweighs form. And it certainly far outweighs that price differential of having a beautiful pen, whatever, that I just am too afraid to take out of the house, too afraid to use. And I feel the same way about Noodler's inks. I counted today, 19 bottles of Noodler's ink, 2 of which are the large eyedropper bottles that I showed you a minute ago. I showed you X Feather, and then I have the Whaleman Sepia, the Manjiro Nakahama. I hope I'm not saying it wrong. At any rate, these are just eyedroppers. They come with the Platinum Preppy pins that I showed you, so that are already set up to be eyedropper fill. And Noodler's ink is another one of those things that is just a superior value. And I'm going to pick up one of the just plainer labels, because there are some Noodler's labels that are works of art in themselves. Borealis Black, particularly. I was going to see if I could find it quickly. Not as quickly as I'd hoped. Anyway, standard bottles. This is the 3-ounce bottle. They all look the same. They are filled when you get them. If you're new to Noodler's, when you open your first Noodler's bottle, be very careful. Set it on a stable surface. Open it very carefully because they are full. And this is what happens when you're not as careful as you should be with opening your Noodler's, or you could spill it even worse than that. But plain labels that are printed with Noodler's ink, obviously not fountain pen ink, but they're printed with Noodler's ink, put on the bottle. The bottle, you could soak that label right off, reuse these bottles if you wanted to. It's just a standard, not particularly attractive other than the function of them. They come full. I like the way they fit on a shelf, which is really nice. Some of them I leave in the box. I have left in the boxes. Some of them I haven't, but it's nice because they pack right up against each other on the shelf, as opposed to something like a Roshizuku bottle or something, right? Or Waterman bottles or something that are funny. So they take up less shelf space. They come full. The colors are fantastic. There's no other ink company that makes the characteristics of an ink like Noodler's does, bulletproof, eternal, fluorescent, all the different characteristics that you can get in Noodler's ink. You cannot get anywhere else. You can't get the color range that you can get from a Noodler's ink anywhere else. Now with that comes some inks that are more intensive in terms of time and maintenance than others, but I think the return is well worth it. This is the Borealis Black, and this is what I was talking about. Just a gorgeous label. So some of their labels are, works of art, but that's not why I buy the ink. I buy fountain pens and ink for the writing experience. It's not just to have an expensive fountain pen. It's not the search for the most expensive, most flexy, goldest, most elite nib. It's not the search for the most sublime material that a fountain pen can be made out of. And it's a 3-part thing to the writing experience for me. It's a mixture of paper, pen, and ink. And if I can get that paper, pen, and ink to something I adore without having broken the bank, so much the better. So all of that by way of saying that, yes, I love Noodler's ink. Frankly, if I had to have one brand of pen and ink for the rest of my life, I could be very happy with Noodler's. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to try to trade some of my other brands of ink for some bottles of Noodler's if people are wanting to trade. But the point is not that it's specifically Noodler's. The point is that cost of value ratio for you. Where is that sweet spot between pen, ink, and paper that for you is worth the money that you spend on it? I think in the beginning I did too. We get caught up in having all the pens, or having all the expensive pens, or the beautiful pens, or whatever. And I know there are people that still operate like that. I did for a long time, for a couple years. All the pens. I want all the pens. I ended up with more pens and ink than I can reasonably use, and not that I'm ready to go chucking them out. There are inks that sit on my shelf for a long time and don't get used, and what a waste, because I would rather have inks that I use on a consistent basis, like I use some of them that are my favorites. Noodler's Black gets used. Noodler's 54 the 54th Massachusetts. Why that's such a problem. Gets used a lot. Platinum Blue Black. So I would rather have those inks that I love that get used on a routine basis than have just stuff that I bought because I had to have all of it, or I had to have this or this particular one. You know, I have 3 bottles of Iroshizuku, and frankly, I use one of the colors. It's not that the other colors I don't like. One I love. The others, there's probably a Noodlers that I like better. So that's just an example. So when you're getting into a hobby, or if you're fairly new to fountain pens, or even if you're, you know, you have a few, you've started out, you've tried different things, think about the cost versus value to you in terms of space, time, money, value, and the enjoyment that you get out of the pure enjoyment that comes from using a fountain pen with the ink of your choice on the paper of your choice, and the feeling that you get when you lay down that line. And for instance, with the TWSBI, with the Noodler's Navy and that broad nib, oh, every time I touch that pen to paper, it's just this just sublime feeling. And you know, it's just the reason I got into fountain pens is the feeling that that gives me. It's a $50 pen, it's a $12 bottle of ink, and I use Leuchtturm notebooks, which are more expensive than some, but just, you know, fantastic paper. So that's all the point was, is that sweet spot that we find between value and payoff, cost, that cost ratio between the reason we got into enjoying fountain pens to begin with and the out of control sometimes ways that hobbies can take us into feeling like we have to have the most expensive, the best, or just all of everything. So just some thoughts. If you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, let me know. And next video I come back with, maybe I'll actually have a point and won't ramble so much anyway. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.